Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me. Good, whatever time it is in your zone. I'm here today to give a talk on why Bodhichitta matters, largely prompted by a request on how to really understand and experience the Bodhichitta, and also other related questions. So thank you for everyone giving your time to tune into this and able to be of some service to everyone. Thank you. First of all, this is a regular session that we do every Sunday as a preceded by a meditation. We have decided to separate the meditation and then add two different slots. So people have choice to join the meditation, which we just finished, and also those who are just listening to the talk, and that's the choice you have. So, firstly, before we say why Bodhicitta matters, we have to understand what Bodhicitta is. First of all, Bodhicitta is a very important Mahayana Buddhist teachings that which distinguishes the teaching of Mahayana Buddhism because of its emphasis on this altruism as the motivation. Bodhi means enlightenment, and Chitta means the thought of enlightenment. So the thought of enlightenment is in many ways quintessence. It's like the very refined essence of the Dharma teachings is the selflessness, not only as a philosophical understanding of emptiness, self, but practicing behaviorally selflessness. And when people are able to practice selflessness, they are making best use of their existence. But when they make the selfless, people have the ability to turn their otherwise fairly futile activities into meaningful when they do it, because they're doing it for the sake of others. So let's distinguish between this normal sign of kind heart and good heart. People do that for the sake of others. With Bodhicitta. With Bodhicitta means vowing to attain enlightenment for the benefit of others, in order to liberate other sentient beings. So it's not just doing anything that really makes yourself being able to be kind or generous or whatever you do for the benefit of others, but the motivation with which you do is to attain enlightenment. So motivation to do is to attain enlightenment. If the motivation is for the sake of attaining enlightenment, then whatever you do, then it becomes what we call bodhicitta. So the bodhicittas are two kinds. There's relative bodhicitta and the what we call ultimate bodhicitta. So the relative bodhicitta is also divided into two. Firstly, the wishing bodhicitta. Wishing meaning your sincere desire or aspiration with which you do things for the benefit, not only just benefit of others, for the benefit of others, so that through your attaining enlightenment. So your aim is to attain enlightenment, but the purpose is for the sake of others. So when you do something altruistic for the benefit of others is not bodhicitta. It has to be to attain enlightenment for the sake of others. So that's slight difference between that. Therefore, the even relative bodhicitta is subdivided into two. The wishing bodhicitta, which means you actually have to make a vow to attain enlightenment for the sake of others. Yeah. So if one hasn't made up the vow to attain enlightenment for the sake of others, it's not a bodhicitta. You could be practicing many generous, loving, kind, and when you see the sufferings of sentient beings, whereby you become very, very overwhelmed by the sufferings, and so you feel the pain as much as your child pain, and then you feel completely transformed by this powerful selfless thought for the sake of others. Now that's very beautiful, isn't it? But even if you have, that could be just compassion directed to sentient beings, compassion directed to sentient beings by feeling empathetically of their suffering, and then feeling very much like emotionally sort of wanting to do whatever you can to relieve them from their suffering. That is compassion directed to sentient beings. But that is not bodhicitta. How do you make that into bodhicitta is not only you have this compassion to the suffering sentient beings with great empathy, but you wanted to do something, however small that may be, but for the sake of attaining enlightenment, so that you can relieve the suffering of sentient beings which you feel so tearfully for the sake of others. So feeling the sufferings of others as say suffering of other people or other animals or beings in the hell realms or beings in a hell realm, hell in the earth, or whatever they're going through, like whatever you go through, that is compassion, definitely, because you have so much empathy to the sufferings of others. But still, to make it bodhicitta, you have to vow to attain enlightenment in order to relieve those sufferings that you feel great deal about. So that's why the bodhicitta, relative bodhicitta, is wishing to attain enlightenment for the sake of relieving their sufferings and also establishing them into enlightenment. So that's the bodhicitta's aim, is that, wishing bodhicitta. Now the second aspect of relative bodhicitta, engaging bodhicitta. Engaging bodhicitta is not just make that as a wish, but try to emulate the wish through some actual concrete deeds and action or speeches. So whatever you have to do, whether through generosity, through your discipline, through your, I would say, tolerance, through your diligence, through your commitment, through your concentration, whatever you do, so that act of doing the wish is engaging bodhicitta. But still what you do to make a bodhicitta is still has to be to attain enlightenment. The reason why there is this to attain enlightenment for the benefit of others to constitute to qualify as a bodhicitta is that you will not be short-sighted. Normally, when we try to practice compassion to sentient beings and we try to relieve their sufferings, we try to help them in the way we do, we become somewhat attached to who we are helping to and what we want to benefit from that, or some kind of upliftment or something like that. Or when they don't do what we ask them to do, then we get disappointed, we get distraught. See, those kind of short-sighted aims and attachment to who you are doing it to often does not become bodhicitta, because bodhicitta is to attain enlightenment with the highest and longest and far-sighted goal. So the likelihood of you and I not to become dissatisfied is not that great if your aim is bodhicitta, because bodhicitta is to attain enlightenment. To attain enlightenment, it will take us quite a deal of time, and therefore you're never going to be disappointed for not being able to not being able to do exactly at what you wanted, because temporal level, but because your ultimate aim is to attain enlightenment. That being the case, until that, however long it takes, you're not going to assess your performance or how much we helped and how much they responded as well. All of those things we don't have to worry, because it's for the sake of attainment enlightenment. The fact that bodhicitta is very hard to conceive and to practice is because your aim and objective is always to attain enlightenment for the benefit of others. So Only thing that you can be disappointed, if ever, is not attaining enlightenment quickly enough or whatever. So because of that, like the normal things that disappoint us cannot upset your bodhicitta, because bodhicitta is such a high goal. It's got such a high purpose. It's a very, very selfless, very much like a fully realized self, fully realized bodhisattvas have that kind of attitude. So that's why for most people who try to practice bodhicitta, beginners bodhicitta, we can call those people who are aspirant, mujiki-sandi, we call that, people who are trying to adopt a conduct that is aspiring the enlightenment for the benefit of others. So whatever we are adhering virtues in a wholesome way by practicing, say, generosity or tolerance or whatever we do for the sake of attaining enlightenment. And we might even feel great compassion, we might feel pain, we might get hurt, but nevertheless, we are not going to be disappointed not being able to allay particular sentient beings, temporal sufferings or whatever. Why? Because our ultimate aim is to attain enlightenment. So that being the highest kind of purpose, your aims and objectives are not going to be sort of derailed by any of those things. So therefore, why Bodhicitta matters is it's hardest thing, because bodhicitta is hardest thing. That's why the Buddhas are very rare. Buddhas are very rare because those who have conceived bodhicitta are very few. Among those who have conceived the bodhicitta correctly are even fewer who has actually kept the vows intact. Even those who have kept the bodhisattva vows intact, but those who actually are able to develop incrementally from path of accumulation to path of preparations are fewer, So those who are struggling on the path of accumulation, on the 9 subsect division on the path of accumulations are numerous, So majority of practitioners why Bodhicitta matters is they need to keep reviewing the bodhicitta, whether they have the bodhicitta or not. They need to review at least 6 times a day. Those who have a bodhicitta, they usually have the vow to review or to check whether they have the bodhicitta maintained last 4 hours or so. So every 4 hours you review your bodhicitta. And if you reviewed 6 hours or 4 hours ago, and you have maintained that, and whether they are assisted by formal sessions or practices, as you keep reminding and checking your bodhicitta regularly, every 4 times every 6 hours. So that would be a person on the path of accumulation aspirant on the path of accumulation will be doing that. And those who succeeded to maintain that kind of the authentic practitioner's discipline, then they might be not only able to maintain the relative bodhicitta, which constitutes wishing and engaging bodhicitta, because he or she is incorporating not only their formal practices or what they Buddhists, but even what they do as normal, ordinary tasks, they are dedicating for the sake of animal benefit of sentient beings, dedicating like that. As a result of that, they are constantly engaging in around the Bodhisattva's way of life, the six perfections. And because of that accumulation of merit subsequently cultivated, they may have now progressed to have some kind of glimpse of needing to cultivate the ultimate bodhicitta. Ultimate bodhicitta is one who is able to regularly practice the engaging bodhicitta. The engaging bodhicitta is also engaging bodhicitta that has armored with the right altruistic motivation with which he is doing. So one who armors his bodhicitta, and then armor bodhicitta is executed in engaged bodhicitta. When his engaged bodhicitta is there, then he need to invoke his ultimate bodhicitta. Ultimate bodhicitta, one who's beginning to comprehend and fathom the ultimate bodhicitta. That means he or she, as soon as they consummate an act of bodhisattva's deeds, such as you feel someone suffering so much and your heart is hurt and pained by it, and then you not become emotionally overwhelmed by it, because you can actually see even the suffering and the help that you do are all interdependently originated, So there is no truly independently existing suffering, let alone the antidote to it. Because of that every time you do practice engaging bodhicitta meticulously, but you're always able to realize that the emptiness of it. You can almost, you can conceive the emptiness, the need to invoke the emptiness, because without the emptiness, we become attached to people or to the things or to the deed or whatever, to the things or deed or to the object. So we become so much attached either to the object or to some wrong intentions or whatever, or the act that we have consummated with. So we shouldn't be tainted by any of the 4 types of attachment. And seven kind of seven kind of attachment and 4 kind of erroneous views. So if one is able to detect the 7 attachments and then remedy them, and for erroneous views, and these are all, I would say, remedied, then we would be very much on the border of the path of path of preparation. Path of preparation is those who have who are on the I would say touching on the initial and the second stages of path of preparation. They will not feel ever stunned. They will, no matter what they do, they never have disappointment, and they never burn their fingers by doing things. They never get disappointed what they did or what they failed or what they succeeded or however might they achieve. They don't have great sense of elation by their success, nor they have any great depression for what, because they are neither attached to the things as truly existing, nor have aversion to something as a truly existing, because neither of the things. But that doesn't mean the Bodhisattva is falling into the nihilism. He still continues to engage on the path of accumulation, practitioner-like. That's why the path of engaged bodhicitta is always like a fire, always burning, always burning. There is nothing that the fire doesn't burn. So there is always a need and ability to stay engaged in the bodhisattva's conduct, but completely assisted by the realization of ultimate bodhicitta. With the ultimate realization of ultimate bodhicitta, then you don't have this pain subsequently, or kind of ordinary attachment subsequently to the achievement or success, because you are able to see the emptiness of self. So the ultimate bodhicitta is that which sees the emptiness of all things, and not only the things you're helping, but the manner in which you help. You do not see that as truly existing, because to be able to realize the path of preparation, you have to have a good degree of the warmth and climax of the realization of the excellence in you being able to practice ultimate bodhicitta on that level. So therefore, I think it's important to understand bodhicitta on that level. Bodhicitta, that is. Another thing is that going back to the bodhicitta, bodhicitta is when you have bodhicitta, it is totally tells the truth, because when you have bodhicitta, there is so distinctive flavor and sweetness to the thing that you're doing. Whatever you're doing, it surpasses any other doings and accomplishment you have, if it's bodhicitta orientated. When you have the correct intention and the correct conduct with which blesses the conduct as a bodhisattva's way of life, there's amazing sense of meaningful activities. It's all other activities are very hollow, whereas this is like the refined essence of the butter of the Dharma. They say this is bodhicitta is like the quintessence of the Dharma, and you don't have the feeling, oh, I did all that to him, and you don't feel the resentment and attachment. The fact that you did any bodhicitta activities is completely heals your mind and body and spirit. You can feel a lot of joy, that this is true lasting joy. This is not joy of some pleasure, joy coming from pleasure. This joy is from a sheer refuge in the Dharma, sheer refuge in the bodhicitta. And by practicing the bodhicitta, say you accept some blames or others' abuse, when you practice with tolerance of bodhicitta, you don't have this feeling as you've been the virtuous one, the other one has been the non-virtuous one. Not like that kind of dualistic. You have this amazing sense of a fitness to be able to practice the bodhicitta, whether it's accepting blame or whatever the case might be, practicing patience or whatever the case might be. You feel completely soothed by that. You are physically feel very light, mentally feel very, very clear, emotionally very, very delighted by that. That's why the bodhicitta, the virtues of the bodhicitta, wholesomeness of bodhicitta, is that it surpasses all other activities, and it purifies lots of your wrong views and opinions and perceptions that you previously had about something or some events of the past that you grapple with, you still haven't reconciled with. But once you have actually practice bodhicitta with the relative, particularly not just relative but also ultimate bodhicitta a few times, you'll be able to ditto all the problems with the very bodhicitta. And the more you bring on the bodhicitta, the more useful the sufferings of sentient beings are, because otherwise the one who has no bodhicitta have a lot of aversion to suffering and sentient beings with problems. So that's why Bodhicitta Matters is, if you wanted to, because otherwise the world is like a battlefield. And when you have bodhicitta, it's like you are in the battlefield, but you're completely armored. Yeah, whatever lands on you doesn't cause any dent to you. Why? Because when you practice bodhicitta, you're not so vulnerable to about me, poor me, thinking what will happen to me, what I didn't do this very well. None of this feeling about me is there, because a person who practices bodhicitta matters because he realized that the worst cause of suffering is self-centeredness, and bodhicitta is a remedy to stop that from taking another step at all. So when you can contain the very root cause of suffering, which is selfishness, the selfishness cause of all the sufferings, according to the bodhicitta teachings, and selflessness is the cause of all Buddhahood. So therefore, bodhicitta basically means selflessness. Selflessness not only as a conduct, also as a meditation, and also as a realization. One has to not just believe there is no self, but one actually understand what it means to be selfless. Selfless is not just behaviorally doing something for the sake of others, but even in the meditation you realize what you did that was selfless do not truly exist. So you not get attached to the selfless act. Even selfless, the act itself do not truly exist. Okay, so it's very important. We are not promoting so that you can hold on to this bodhicitta as a truly even the bodhicitta itself is not truly existing, and so that's very important. Not just the form is emptiness, but the emptiness, not just the form of things are emptiness, but emptiness itself is the form. And so therefore you can't have one both ways. So even the bodhicitta that you cultivated is not something truly existing, and you do not become this kind of dualistic mind. Oh, bodhicitta is the only way. All the other paths are the wrong type of thing. No, a bodhisattva don't see that way. Bodhisattva sees his or her renunciation of selfishness as a higher form of renunciation, but he at the same time see the relative renunciation of whatever people need to tailor according to what they have to abandon and adopt. Bodhicitta sees them and honors them without any contradiction, and he sees the sentient being needing to take small steps before they're actually able to practice what matters as a bodhicitta. Why bodhicitta matters is the particularly those who have actually conceived Mahayana teachings and have heard and read about bodhicitta have actually taken the bodhisattva vows, either in a bodhisattva vow ceremony or in a Vajrayana empowerment. You have to receive the bodhicitta vows. You have to actually take the bodhisattva vows. If you haven't taken the bodhisattva vows formally, then you may have read about it, you may really know what bodhicitta constitute, but you still have no merit of practicing bodhicitta because you have not actually registered yourself. You haven't actually formally said, yes, I will. So that yes, I will bodhicitta, meaning taking up the bodhisattva vows, you can do it preferably through a correct ceremony under the guidance of a realized teacher and who has the tradition or lineage of giving that. But at the same time, they say you can also receive the bodhisattva vows by yourself visualizing in the presence of the Buddha and go through the procedure of taking up the bodhicitta and make the bodhisattva vows yourself, and then make yourself go through a small ritual and then actually take up the bodhisattva. If you have formally done that, which most people I don't think knows how to do that, so most people usually take bodhisattva vows at an actual bodhisattva vow ceremony or during a Vajrayana major or minor empowerment ceremony. During the Vajrayana major empowerment, you always take refuge first, and then take bodhisattva vows, and then take the actual deity's empowerment itself. So therefore, Vajrayana teachings empowerments are very, very safe kind of structure in which they have built a structure so that you can actually take up bodhisattva vows during the empowerment ceremony. So all the preparation during the empowerment is actually person takes the bodhisattva vows. So if you have not taken any bodhisattva Vajrayana empowerment, nor have you actually gone through an actual formal Mahayana ceremony to take the bodhisattva vows, means you have not actually taken bodhisattva vows. So you can't say I have bodhicitta vows when you haven't taken. It's like if you don't have citizenship paper, you don't say you have citizenship because they say where is it, and you can't prove it unless you have the citizenship paper or you have to be recorded. Likewise, you have to know in your mind consciously that yes, this such and such day I took the bodhisattva vow. You may have read the Shantideva's book. You may have heard many of Dalai Lama's teachings. You may have been very inspired by the bodhicitta. But if you have not formally taken up the bodhicitta vows, you have not got bodhicitta. So that's why it's very important. You may have the very qualities, I would say, qualities and the attitude of a person who understand and have received the bodhisattva vows, and you might even feel the amazing selfless emotions of empathy for the sake of sentient beings when you witness them suffer, and you definitely can tell it is like a bodhicitta, a selfless bodhisattva sentiment they have for the ailing sentient beings. You might even have, but it doesn't constitute the actual bodhisattva experiences because you haven't taken the bodhisattva vows. So those people who are enthused to practice bodhisattva and even practicing Mahayana practice, they have to formally actually receive a bodhicitta vows. At least by going through minor Vajrayana empowerment, you can also take a bodhisattva vows as well as a refuge. So without having taken up the bodhisattva vows, you don't have the bodhisattva vow. That's as simple as that. As simple as that. That those who have taken the Bodhisattva vow, then Bodhicitta practice matters even more. Because both those who have not taken Bodhisattva vows, Bodhicitta is maybe very inspiring teaching, but it still doesn't matter very much if you haven't taken, if you don't do anything Mahayanistic Bodhicitta, because you haven't even take the vows, So you have to formalize the taking of the formality of taking the Bodhisattva vows sometime soon, particularly if you're very much inspired and enthused and you believe in the idea of selflessness practicing. And they say that people who understand Bodhicitta teaching, they say, wow, who can do that? Is there anyone who really does what this teaching says? People usually tend to think like that. And that's a sign that they understand what really constitutes of a person having Bodhicitta and have realized what it constitutes and kept up the vow and maintain the vow and try to live by that. That's already the most important practice, more important. In the Mahayana teachings, the Pratimoksha vows of a monastic or vows of anybody who observed about 253 or 36 or 10 or 5 precepts, that's fine. But still, if they don't have bodhicitta, it's all of their vows are just a kind of individual liberation, just to liberate themselves from whatever this life's difficulties or future lives, the fear of being born in the lower realms or being stuck in samsara and then wishing to attain something called nirvana for themselves. So there are such people, and that kind of intention to achieve nirvana for oneself is what we call the small bodhicitta. They have bodhicitta, but small bodhicitta. That's why I call Theravada is not one who lacks bodhicitta. They have the altruistic mind to achieve attainment of arhathood for themselves. That is a form of bodhicitta, but bodhicitta that is only small-minded, small just for oneself, small attainment of nirvana for oneself. So they usually say the lesser, middling, and greater bodhisattva. Bodhisattva that are lesser are those who have generated bodhicitta just to attain nirvana for themselves. Because, like Chandakirti talks about that there are three levels of bodhicitta holders. That Sravaka bodhicitta holders, Pratyeka Buddha bodhicitta holders, and Bodhisattva bodhicitta holders. So the Sravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas have thought of attaining arhathood for themselves. It is therefore lesser and middling form of bodhicitta. And the Mahayana, Bodhisattva's bodhicitta, is the highest form of. Therefore, their attainment enlightenment, for the sake of all sentient beings, they may attain enlightenment. So therefore, when we talk about bodhicitta, we shouldn't think bodhicitta is a practice that only Mahayanas have, Theravadins don't have. The Mahayana, Theravadins do have. They adhere to a lot of hardships and penance and discipline to attain nirvana for themselves. So that is also our lesser bodhicitta. And arhathood also, the solitary realizer also seek to attain enlightenment themselves like a rhinoceros to attain arhathood, that of the Pratyeka Buddha. That is also a middling bodhicitta. So the lesser and middling bodhicittas are not Mahayana bodhicittas, but they are common vehicle bodhicittas, because they also do become arhats, and they have many amazing qualities and characteristics of what arhats are very highly revered for. So that's why they are also enlightenment, but in a lesser and middling level of enlightenment. The great level of enlightenment is the Mahayana bodhisattvas, who actually have taken the bodhisattva vows to attain enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings, but not to seek nirvana for themselves at all. So that's why that distinguishes the three hierarchical of bodhicitta. Bodhicitta of a lesser, middling, and the advanced bodhicitta. The advanced bodhisattvas, they're dwelling on the first bhumi, the second, and all the way them, also have many internal variation as the qualities of the level of the bodhisattva. So that's why those who are aspirant bodhicitta practitioners who are struggling on the path of accumulation, and then once they are on a path of preparation onwards, then we have the lesser, middling, and greater bodhicitta holders. So those who are on the path of accumulation, aspirant bodhicitta holders, those who have consciously studied and learned what constitutes bodhicitta and actually made a vow to practice bodhicitta, and they also renew their bodhicitta vows at least, as I said, 6 times during each 24 hours. So they say 3 times during the day, 3 times during the night. So try to always remember if you have bodhicitta, and try to do that before you say something or do something. Not only that, you might formally do some prayers to make yourself very cognizant and very able to self-assess, to check whether you have bodhicitta or not. And the fact that you are always checking periodically whether you have bodhicitta or not will also always makes you check your intention before you do say, react, and overreact to anything. Whether your reaction or perception or opinion and what you say or do concord with the bodhicitta or not. That kind of person who's checking the motivation is very, very reflexive cognizant of his or her ability to recognize what constitutes bodhicitta, and they are trying to cultivate that. So one who is doing that is always very, very observant of his own thoughts, and he's usually quarreling with their own afflictions. They have very little or no time or interest to fight and with other sentient beings, because they have a full-on need to combat with this demon of the residual demon of self-cherishing still there. A residual demon of self-cherishing is still there. That's why you have to routinely review the bodhisattva vows every 6 hours. Every 4 hours, 6 times a day. So when you're doing that, that means you are on the path of accumulation. Path of accumulation person need to accumulate the merit of periodically, systematically with the good discipline. Discipline means person who actually have a schedule. And he's not planning on what he will do tomorrow or day. He's planning on counting on what he will do today, how he has allocated his hours, what doing, what not doing. So how to do that, even though he said he will do at that time and so on. But still, he want to make sure that how he does with the right attitude that's more important than not just what he does on the surface. So that kind of self-critique and self-cognition is very important. Then you become truly mindful. That mindfulness of a bodhisattva is not just dry mindfulness. We're not talking about mindfulness for the just sake of getting some things done. We're talking about mindfulness of not doing anything for the sake of selfish reasons, but instead one mindful of trying to do everything for the benefit of others. So that's the mindfulness of all mindfulness. That's altruism. And now, when people talk about mindfulness everyday life, these days the people are more hijacking the whole idea of mindfulness to produce some things with a great degree, great accuracy, great speed, and that's spiritual materialism also. Lots of people have done materially very well, but so that doesn't mean they have realized selfish chitta. They have achieved selfish chitta. How to be selfish? How do you know you have bodhicitta? bodhicitta is there's very little sleeplessness and tiredness and stress and angst or ill will in your mind when you have really bodhicitta. They just don't coexist with all the others. They don't. The person who has bodhicitta does not have any time could never be wasted on selfishness and anger or disappointment or whatever. He or she may sometimes echo certain things, but those are just very, very temporary for the benefit of others. For themselves, they don't have any kind of disappointment because they don't see anything. It is when they have done what matters most is having the bodhicitta. When you have the bodhicitta, even if somebody is 100% angry at you and think you're completely wrong, it doesn't really matter. That doesn't really destroy your goodness. So therefore, any kind of opposition of somebody, even your fantastic performance, will not make you to be infuriated by them. Why? Because that's what the Bodhichitta matters. You know exactly how to practice not only tolerance when tolerance needed, but also lack of inherently existing tolerance that you practice. so it's very, because it doesn't, you're not practicing tolerance to cover yourself up, or to prevent yourself as not facing the fault of not practicing tolerance. And that's not the case. When you practice tolerance, even the practice tolerance itself is transcended by not getting attached to it or for whom you're doing and how you're doing and whatsoever. You don't see them as truly existing. You do the things, but you do things because nothing is truly existing. And therefore what you do, even if you did lot, it doesn't have this cause for you to become attached to, either in a pleasant sense or to become aversive to in the negative sense. No hostility and aggression to things you succeed or achieved when you have bodhicitta. So when you have bodhicitta, you see good in the sentient beings. Even somebody is really negative and aggressive or whatever, you still see them as that only through such unruly sentient beings I can have a chance to upgrade my quality of bodhicitta and how I might perform. So in all the antitheses, all the obstacles in life that we usually reject for a practitioner, for a bodhisattva, for him, he is armored well enough to know where his bodhicitta psyche matters. So therefore, his bodhicitta is best tested in worse situations. So when you have bodhicitta, then every difficulty is not a cause for a setback, but cause of transformation of all of this. Because for the bodhisattva, not losing your temper and not being angry at the difficulties is the sign of you being bodhicitta. See, whether to contain our own negative emotions or difficult sentiments around you, bodhicitta is the most important and valuable armor. You have to don on the armor, and then you wouldn't, whatever comes to your way, they don't penetrate you, because you have put on the bulletproof vest. That bulletproof vest is having the bodhicitta. When you have bodhicitta, then difficulties doesn't seem to truly existing difficulty. It just question is whether you have the remedy or not. When the bodhicitta is there, you're always ready to. In real time, you're able to find the necessary remedy, effective remedy at your disposal. Why? Because you have sufficient stock of merit and wisdom that empowers you to practice there and then. So that's why bodhicitta matters. Bodhicitta matters because when you have bodhicitta, you will practice tolerance, you will practice compassion, you will practice generosity, you will practice your discipline, you will practice mindfulness, you will practice meditation and transcendental wisdom. All all of the 6 parameters becomes harmoniously blendable in the given situation. None of your wholesome practices of Bodhisattva way of life become redundant, useless. The more the difficulties, more the challenging difficulties that your life is present, there the Bodhicitta matters most, because there's no problem or suffering or difficulties that could not be remedied by Bodhicitta. Bodhicitta is there for the panacea that cures all the illnesses. Then you can realize, oh, this must be the way how the Bodhisattvas in the past practice. This will be the very aspiration of Bodhisattvas in the future. These are the very crux of the quintessence of all the teachings of the Buddha Dharma. So therefore you have this amazing sense of embrace and acknowledgement and grace in being able to see all the antitheses of the Bodhicitta practices become the most appropriate kind of theater where you can perform your act of Bodhicitta. So that's why when you are practicing Bodhicitta, it becomes, all difficulties becomes a great opportunity to boost your bodhicitta. And the bodhicitta isn't something you do some hours and then you don't have to do other hours, because the suffering and the problem of sentient beings are incessant. It's just a river that is there's no time the river is not flowing like that. Suffering of samsara is continuously flowing and drowning many people. So you need to bring your bodhicitta always on the readiness, not only in readiness to practice, but always practicing and readiness to upgrade the quality of the very practice of bodhicitta. When you have that, the bodhicitta is that which outlasts everything. When you have bodhicitta, even the sentient beings who are otherwise very aggressive and hostile towards you, they become the very benefactor of your bodhicitta. It is only through such unruly sentient beings' behavior we have an excellent opportunity to practice bodhicitta. You can't practice bodhicitta in shrines and temples and with the Buddha. You have to practice bodhicitta with the sentient beings who bring up all of their karma and defilements that they haven't realized to be the cause of their suffering, who vent out their negativities, feelings, and emotions, reaction to you, and there your bodhicitta matters most. And so bodhicitta isn't just a good mood time. When you feel all of a sudden suffering, you feel overwhelmed, and you feel you will do anything. You are generous. You will do. Of course, those things are act of compassion. But compassion and bodhicitta are not same. Loving kindness, compassion are causes for developing bodhicitta. But bodhicitta is much higher than compassion itself. So if you feel someone's problems really makes you feel empathetic, you feel overwhelmed, you're crying because you really care for them, that is a compassion directed to sentient being. That is not bodhicitta. If it's bodhicitta, you will have a completely different set of feelings and experience. So how do you know that you are experiencing bodhicitta? Is when something awful and negative, difficult is happening to you or waged on you by someone that you least expect or whatever. And you actually look at the thing that what they're doing to you as not an object of anger or fear or hostility, but as an object of great adoration by you, so that that their heart lifting or their negativity, what they do, has greatly instigated your altruism. And then you really feel the plight of the sentient being that is in them as well as in yourself, who are all going to be rescued from this tyranny of aggression and violence and reaction and impatience and so on. But instead, you will have the sweet fitness to be able to practice the very teaching that you so much rejoice. And so, therefore, bodhicitta is not just a 4-line prayer. Bodhicitta is a mindfulness of guarding your heart to practice selflessness, so that every act of selflessness that you do adopt are going to cause enlightenment of yourself so that you can benefit sentient beings. With us being fully enlightened with the bodhicitta, our help to benefit sentient beings, even if we so wish, is greatly greatly sort of jeopardized by our lack of bodhicitta. So therefore, the bodhicitta matters most. So Mahayana practitioners should always remember bodhicitta. Even the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha, even you remember all the triple gem, it is so that you can remember bodhicitta. It's not so that you have refuge in the triple gem. And even if you renounce home and wealth and become a mendicant, shave your hair, live in a helmet or in a small hut, and have totally leading a life of simplicity. But if you don't have bodhicitta, you're just torturing yourself. You're just going through the extreme practice of self-harm and self-kind of limiting and being harsh and so on, but for nothing. So it's not worth all your effort for just to seek your own attainment of nirvana. But if you have the bodhicitta motivation, then even your ordinary day work that you do, you will find a great opportunity to do your service, to do what you do for the benefit of others with the right intention. You don't have any aversion, even with your work that you do, not just as a mere thing to give you earning. It's not that. You need to have the bodhicitta is the most important one. And so, if someone is even paying you to do an ordinary job, and if you have the bodhicitta, that ordinary job that people have given to you for you to do can become a great opportunity to boost your altruism if you have the right attitude. So that's why the bodhicitta matters not only as a formal practice, but also in everyday life activities. You will not have this indecision whether you want to do spiritual or whether you want to do kind of ordinary worldly worked up with this kind of not a huge gap between the two. It's not so much what you do; it's what attitude you do. So all the Mahayana and Vajrayana Mahasiddhas, they took up all kinds of ordinary professions, but that's outwardly they looked very ordinary, not even look like practitioner, but deep down they were in a constant meditation. So that's probably more important, because we have majority of sentient beings doing odd kind of jobs nobody want to do. Maybe 80% of people are doing things they don't want to do. And but yet they need to be done. If they have the right attitude, what they're doing doesn't have to be changed. What the attitude with which they do may need improvement. So that's why the bodhicitta is the panacea. It is the elixir that turns all base metal into the gold. So it means that if you have bodhicitta, you will be able to maintain that in your everyday life situation, as well as with the help of formal practices and whatnot. So that's why bodhicitta is a very distinctive Mahayana Buddhist practice. So we'll finish it here. Thank you very much, everyone. That's all. I will do the dedication of merit, because if we dedicate this merit of listening and thinking on these teachings for the benefit of all sentient beings, and that is also one way to seal the practice with a altruistic motivation. From the ocean of Buddha descended here in the Mahayana teaching. Whatever merit I have accrued, may hope becomes jealous to hold the Mahayana Diji Kareja Manju Jrinyavotin Azama Tabadra Laiva following all the Hezamba Aisha de Deke O de Mere Mede Selem Bodhichitta Tebe Veranayanaza it has been made freely without generation. Thank you, everyone. See you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.